Hi, it's Hela from Dawn Emporium, and look, I'm not in a film t-shirt. Woohoo! That's mainly because it's spooky time of year, and wanting to keep in with the spookiness, I decided to do some Halloweeny videos. But as you may have guessed, a bit bored on the whole European culture, so I decided to have a look into the world and see what the world has to offer. Wahaha. Yeah, I really wouldn't make a very good super villain. I don't think James Bond's gonna have to worry too hard with me. So I had a look at vampires because I know that there's loads of different vampires around. I remember when I was younger watching this, I think it was a French horror film, and this vampire, they looked like normal human beings, but their tongues split open, and they had like, the best way to put it would be like eel mouths inside their tongues, like rows of teeth. It was awesome. I've never been able to find out what the film was called though, so if anyone knows, let me know, because I love that film. It's just stuck with me. 20 years later, still want that film. So going by that, I decided to have a look and see what other vampires were out in the world, and I've picked a few choice ones for this year. No doubt there's going to be other years and other vampire selections. Don't worry, this is just a vampire video. You're going to have to deal with lots of mwahahas for other strange creatures. I'm sorry. I already am sorry. So I'm going to start off on... I already want to shoot myself with this one. Gengsi. Chinese hopping vampires. There you go. I can say that bit. And that's where we're starting. And I'm not going to tell you what the theories are as to what they actually are. I'm just going to tell you what they are, what the signs are, and what to do to avoid them or get rid of them if you ever find yourself faced with one of these, any of these vampires. So when it comes to the Chinese hopping vampire, they're normally depicted as a corpse in full or partial rigor mortis, usually with their arms outstretched in front. And they're dressed in the, is it King? Q-I-N-G. King? I'm sorry. Dynasty official garments, and that's like a calf length mandarin cut overcoat. Now, a mandarin cut overcoat is the straight up collars that go like that. I love mandarin style suits, and I have to say it's really good for your jawline as well. Well, unless you've got a saggy one like me, but if you've got a nice chiseled jawline, mandarin cut suit's the way to go, not one of these flappy ones. Usually with some form of square chest piece in the centre, which seems to denote what their job was. So, you know, if you were like an accountant, it would have a sign on to say that you're an accountant or something like that. That's how it seems to me, but I didn't look into it too deeply. But yeah, a lot of them do seem to have like a yellow or gold square just there for some reason that does seem to be like their job description on their chest, which is actually kind of cool. You know, instead of an ID card, you've got it on your outfit. They look, well, they can look utterly unremarkable, and look fairly normal passing, or they can be absolutely ghastly and basically everything that you think of when you think of more of a zombie than a vampire. We're talking rotting, festering corpse through to skeletal remains, depending on how old they are. Now, there are different versions of how they come about, so they could have risen from the grave as a skeleton or a rotting corpse or a freshly dead person, or then again, what they could have done is they could have degenerated over time and have been a vampire the entire time. It depends what tradition they're from. And a lot of these things, there are numerous very similar but not quite the same traditions when it comes to things like vampires, especially with countries as big as China. A lot of the times, like with the Gengsi, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to the entirety of China and all outlying areas that also believe in these vampires, because I know there's quite a few island nations that also have hopping vampires. I suck. I know I do, and not even in a vampiric way. I actually be a Greek vampire, but I'm not doing them. But yes, so they can look just like a normal living person, maybe a bit pale, right the way through to zombified corpse. A lot of the time, they're seen as being green, but that is down to the fact that your body does change colour when you die, and sometimes they're also portrayed as glowing green, which is believed to be down to funguses that grow and feed on the human body as it decomposes, which I actually think is really quite cool. And sometimes they will have binding spells stuck to their foreheads below their hats, because they do have hats on, because that's part of the King Dynasty official garments. I'm going to say King because I'm English. I don't actually know any other way to say a Q. I'm sorry. Because to me, to say it another way would be like a Kang, but it's not spelled that way, and a Quang, and it's not spelled that way. To me, it's King. I'm sorry. I've just offended an entire dynasty. I'm gonna get ghosts tonight. Anyway, yes. So they tend to have long white hair, and a lot have furry skin as well. Again, that could be down to fungus growing out their skin. Awesome detail. They sound like very fun guys. Terrible. And a lot of them behave like animals, mainly because they've lost their humanity when they died. And they feed on the ki, again, I'm sorry, or life force of a person to survive. Though the Western stories have affected this, and now a lot of stories have them feeding on blood. Now the ki is life force, blood is life blood. You can see how these would intermingle, commingle. So because they're in a state of rigor mortis, they can't move around like a normal person, so they tend to jump instead of walking, and in running and things like that, keeping their arms outstretched for balance. The older they get, the more powerful they get, and the higher they can jump and the further they can jump. They have long black claw-like nails and extremely long tongues. Now, the thing that I think is really cool about the nails is I know that Chinese queens used to grow these two nails. They actually used to have nail guards to protect their nails, which is awesome, right? But surely that would be a sign of something. If those two nails are the sign of a Chinese queen, then surely that would... No. It's just me thinking, it's the way my brain works. I'm sorry. I think it's hyperactive. They're closer to westernized zombies than what they are to westernized vampires, such as the fact that they're mindless and rotting corpses and things like that. They're also blind, so if you come across one, holding your breath is a good way to stop it from realising you're there. Although at the moment I'm that raspy, even if I held my breath, I think it'd hear me. But if it can't hear you, it can't attack you. So hold your breath. It won't know you're there. However, in saying that, if you put a mirror in front of it, it can see its own reflection. And apparently that terrifies them and they'll just hop off, literally. Other ways to stop it or divert its attention include items made from peach tree wood, a rooster's call, fire, vinegar, axes, brooms, and dropping a bag of coins, which will stop it in its tracks because it then has to collect and count the coins, which, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. The rooster's call is a sign of dawn, by the way. So because it's a sign of dawn, they get afraid because they're not big on daylight. The next vampire that we've got is Helawe'en. I hope I've said that right. Which is a Japanese wet woman. Now, again, she's not technically a vampire in the Western sense, but she's close enough and cool enough that she's in here. She's a giant snake-like creature, some say hundreds of meters long. I think it's like 342 meters in length. So she's not a woman to be messed with. With the story's changed because her reach is actually quite a large proportion of what we class as modern day Japan and Japanese islands. And in some places she is a giant snake with a woman's face, and in others she's a giant snake with a woman's torso, arms and head. So she can change a bit, but either way she always has long black hair, and whether you see her in water or out of water, her hair is always dripping wet, which is why she's a wet woman. Where am I? Yeah, sometimes they disguise themselves as a young woman carrying a small swaddled baby, crying for help from fishermen, sailors and random passers-by, and they're begging for you to take the child from them so that they can have a rest, a break. Now, I have to say, this is snidey, but also understandable. I'm sure anyone who has had children understands what it is like when you have a newborn. Sometimes you just need a break. And over here in the West, we just would not ever, because we're just that way inclined. We always assume everyone's going to kill our children and everything's going to kill our children. Surely if it's everything is going to kill our children, we'd all be living in Australia, because there everything is going to kill everything. But in other parts of the world, you can just ask a random stranger, can you hold my baby for 5 minutes while I just have a cigarette? Just sit down for a moment, and it's fine. This does happen. There are communities where community is at the heart of being part of a community. Imagine that. You know your neighbours' names. Can you imagine? I know, it's just mind-blowing stuff. So anyway, there you are, walking by a lake or a river or the sea, and there's this young woman with a small swaddled baby, and she's just there and she's crying. She just needs a break because she's at her wit's end. So there you are, Good Samaritan. Okay, I will hold your baby for a few minutes, try and calm it down while you just have a breather. And you look down at the baby, look back up at the woman, realise that it's Helawe'en, and then look back down at the baby and realise it's a boulder. And the first thing you're going to do is want to drop the boulder, and you can't. It's glued to you and it's heavy. You are not moving anywhere. You cannot drop the boulder. The boulder is glued to you, and you are glued to the earth by like magnetic powers or something from this boulder that Helawe'en has just given you. And then she will attack. Other ways she will attack is she has massive, massive strength and a huge, great big long size. So she will attack using her size and her power as well. But she prefers to use the young girl. There's also another story I remember of some fishermen who saw a young woman washing her hair. They went back and said, "We've just seen Helawe'en, stay away." And some other men went, "No, you didn't. You're just imagining it." And they went over to where this young woman had been washing her hair, and the other fisherman, the first fisherman who saw Helawe'en, didn't get too close, heard some screams. And then these other fishermen, the second fisherman who thought that they were lying, and went over to Helawe'en, were never seen or heard of again after these screams, obviously. So she must have attacked them another way. We must have got too close, and I don't know, she broke their neck with her tail or something like that. That's a story from a river, but that was just a girl washing her hair by the river. So she can entice you in other ways. She's usually said to be ugly when you see her as Helawe'en, but when she's being a human, she is quite pretty. Not always beautiful, but quite pretty. So they are quite hideous as Helawe'en. They have very long forked tongues, which they use. Hang on, I've lost myself. Which they use to drain the blood from their now helpless victims once they've got hold of the boulder. So what you should do is avoid holding their baby, because then you're not taking any part in their boulder games, and always wear gloves when holding a baby, especially near a water's edge. Yeah, other than that, there's not really much you can do when it comes to Helawe'en, because they are so big, they are so strong. I haven't found any way to kind of counteract them apart from wearing gloves. So there you go. Now, here's two cool ones as well. Right, these are both from the Philippines. The first one is Mandarugu. Do you know what, right? I actually try and say these words loads, and then when it comes to actually saying them on video, I completely fail. I am so sorry. So Mandarugus are usually beautiful women. They live relatively normal daytime lives. They marry a man, settle down, life is good. Then one of two things either happens. Slowly but surely, her husband becomes weaker and dies. Or the other is they disappear every night, and men from surrounding towns and villages start dying. I suppose it depends on how much she likes her husband. That's all I have to say. So what? And if you go visiting, like, say you're there a neighbour, and you go visiting your cousin in the next town, you might see the wife there when she's supposed to be at home. So what happens is usually young, beautiful women between midnight and sunrise grow wings, which they use to fly from place to place to find their prey, with long, sharp tongues, which they use to either prick a man's neck to suck his blood or prick inside his mouth as she kisses him. Yeah, that's going to put you off tongues for a bit, isn't it? She usually slowly sucks her husband dry of blood over a long period, or flies to the neighbouring towns and villages to attack random men. To counteract a Mandarugu, there isn't really much you can do. You can only stab them in the chest or guts with a bamboo knife to kill them. So they're a one-hit wonder. There's not really much else you can do against them. The next Filipino one, these are quite awesome. Right? These actually sound like something from D&D. And I hope I get the right amount of ands in here. Mananangels, have I said that right? Probably not. Are very different creatures to mandarugus, right? They're much more similar to European vampires. They're adverse to daylight. They're purely creatures of the night. They're usually female. However, these are disgustingly ugly, and they're not absolutely beautiful, unlike their sisters who go around with their spiky tongues. Again, they do fly, but they don't spout the beautiful nocturnal wings of the mandarugus. Manangels literally come... Mananangels. I've probably just called them bananas or something. I'm so sorry. I know how close words can be. I am so sorry. Literally come apart at their torso or waist, spouting bat wings that I've seen are usually torn and holy, like they've had quite a few injuries on them, which they then use to fly off into the night, leaving their prone lower bodies behind them. And then they feed, preferably using their fly-like mouths, you know, like a proboscis, like what a fly has, to suck at the rich blood at the hearts of fetuses as their mothers sleep. Yeah, no fear whatsoever. Mananangels, I am so sorry, are said to usually be women who were left at the altar, so they're also a blight to grooms-to-be and newlywed couples looking at their favourite foods. They basically like to eat everyone they missed out on. They missed out on a faithful groom, they missed out on being a newlywed, and they missed out on having children because they were left at the altar. So they have a few issues here, and really they need counselling, not blood. I don't think you're going to stop them on the blood though. They abhor garlic, salt, holy water, daggers, light, vinegar, spices, stingray tails, and which can be turned into a whip apparently. Sounds kind of cool, but poor stingrays. And can be killed if you put things like garlic, salt, spices, and holy water on their prone lower half, stopping them from becoming whole again. So then split into two. They obviously can't seem to wash it all off. Now, that's just 4 different types of vampires: Chinese, Japanese, and 2 Filipino vampires. How cool are they? Completely different. Absolutely awesome. Now, I mentioned about the Greek vampire thing. I am going to mention them. I forgot to warn my son when we went on holiday. It was to Crete. He was only a toddler at the time, and his hair is so orange, like so orange. He looks like a walking, talking danger sign. Now, I had it a bit, but my son is just, he glows in the dark. And loads of people were touching his hair, especially old ladies just touching his hair as he passed by in the street, going into shops, touching his hair. You know, walking on the beach, people were touching his hair. And they do it to me, which I didn't mind, but they do it to him. And he was like, "Mum, why is everyone touching my hair?" And then I remembered in Greek culture, vampires, you don't bite a vampire to become a vampire. What vampires are gingers. When gingers die, we don't die, we become vampires. And anyone who hasn't touched our hair is then fair game for food. And if you've touched our hair, we then won't eat you. Yeah. So me and my son now have this joke that it doesn't matter anyway, we can live life on the edge because we're just vampires anyway, we just haven't died yet. So that just tells you exactly how varied vampire stories actually are. And I'm sure next year I will do more on vampires because there are so many stories about bloodsuckers. They are awesome. Absolutely love them. But my next video, which should come out in a day or two, is going to be about werewolves. It's not actually going to be about werewolves, it's going to be about shape changes in general. But I thought I'd start off with the vampires and then go on to werewolves, because why not? You know, it's getting up to Halloween. And then I might do some of the histories. I'm not sure yet. Yeah, some of the histories of Halloween, because there's lots of different, in Europe, Halloween is a big thing, right? It's been changed a lot over time, but it's been a big thing throughout history, and lots of different cultures have lots of different practices, and they haven't all celebrated it on the same day in the same way. It's a bit like, if you watch my monthly roundups, there's been festivals to ancestors from other cultures, and I was sitting there going, it would be nice for people to know about the actual history of Halloween. The reason why it hasn't come out yet, the reason why I haven't been doing it, is as you may be able to tell by my voice, it is actually getting a lot better. But my family came down with COVID, and just as they were beginning to recover, I then came down with it, and I've spent the last 2 weeks croaking. I only started getting my voice back about 2 days ago. So as soon as I could, I started filming, basically. So hopefully I'll be back in a day or two to bug you about werewolves and other shape changes, and I can't wait. And then I'll go into the history of Halloween and why I absolutely love Halloween. And also, I know you can't really see it properly. If you like my very cool coat, it's a shame I don't do it further out. Isn't that cool? I've got a brown one, I'll be wearing that for the werewolf one, because, you know, more werewolfy colours. These are made by Groovy Chick, and they're actually all second-hand materials, and I absolutely love them, and they have awesome witchy hoodies. Hang on. So, hang on. Oh, that one's so long sometimes. Woohoo! Told you, awesome witchy hoodie. Yeah. So, mine are a few years old now, and they deal with me being me in them quite well. I normally only wear them for literally special occasions, which really does make me sound overly witchy, doesn't it? It's usually actually steampunk stuff I wear them for, but I just wanted to big it up because it is my sister-in-law. So I thought I would. There you go. Aren't I sad? Yes, I am. But everybody sits there and goes on about waste not, want not, and then still buy stuff from big shops. There you go. I stopped myself from saying any names. Oh my God. And forgets the fact that people are out there making stuff from second-hand things, and they make awesome things out of second-hand things. And this is lovely, warm, comfy, and absolutely awesome. I want another one in another colour when I have the money. So I need a green one now, and then probably a blue. Probably an entire rainbow wardrobe of them, to be fair. But yeah, I don't get ad revenue, do I? So anyway, see you soon, and I'll tell you about werewolves then. Your power, bye.